Welcome to the Canadian Horse Racing Hall of Fame. This very special event highlights our newest legend, Man o' War, and his entrance into the Canadian Horse Racing Hall of Fame. Today marks 100 years to the day when the original Big Red so significantly impacted Canadian racing by winning a match race against Canadian-owned Sir Barton, a very successful individual who in his day was able to win the Kentucky Derby, the Preakness, and the Belmont Stakes. Now, the match race took place October 12, 1920, in the Gold Cup at Kenilworth Park in Windsor, Ontario. And yes, we do have highlights of that celebrated match race from 100 years ago coming up shortly. But we do want to hear from the president of the Hall of Fame, Mr. Darrell Kaplan. He will have remarks about the class of 2019, and we'll learn more about our elected class of 2020. So it is my pleasure at this time to introduce to you the president of the Canadian Horse Racing Hall of Fame, Darrell Kaplan.
Horse racing in Canada traces back more than 250 years. It is a sport and an industry that has persisted and persevered through times of economic crisis, wars, and human struggle. Perhaps the reason that horse racing has continued throughout some of the toughest times in human history is because in many ways it is bigger than us. The equine athlete represents strength, courage, and beauty. And during our greatest struggles, we are lifted by the spirit of the horse. This year has not been a normal year for any of us. And for the Canadian Horse Racing Hall of Fame, the same holds true. We are charged with honoring the best of the sport and promoting and protecting the history of horse racing in Canada. And while we remain fully committed to our mandate, things look a little different this year. Normally in the spring, we would be unveiling the Hall of Fame plaques for our 2019 inductees. And during the summer, we would hold our gala to induct our class of 2020. Our 2019 inductees, Josie Carroll, Ian Fleming, Bori Margolis, Trevor Ritchie, Jimmy Takter, Mickey Walls, all along Angus Hall, Lexi Liu, and Tricky Tucci have joined the group of the very greatest ever to participate in the Canadian horse racing industry. Our 2020 inductees, Gary Boulanger, Sue Leslie, Mike Keogh, Paul McDonnell, Ben Wallace, Amour Angus, Mick Wicked, Play the King, Rambling Willie, and Tepid will also take their rightful place in the Canadian Horse Racing Hall of Fame. And we are committed to ensuring that they are inducted with family and friends by their side, as we have done for decades before. There is no doubt about the importance of honoring greatness in the appropriate manner, and we will do precisely that when the time is appropriate. In addition to recognizing the best and brightest in our sport, we also remain committed to moving the hall itself forward. We dream of a Hall of Fame that will draw people in and showcase the history and heritage of the industry in a way that is truly engaging and forward-looking. Like with the industry itself, 2020 may have given us some unexpected bumps in the road, but as the horse racing industry has done for hundreds of years previous, we shall persevere, more resilient and stronger than ever before. As a charity and a not-for-profit, we ask for your support in helping us not only to operate, but to support our vision for the future. We are committed to moving forward in an innovative and reimagined Hall of Fame, and despite the struggles we all face, our vision has not wavered. Today, it couldn't be more fitting that we celebrate Man o' War and the 100-year anniversary of perhaps the single most exciting horse race in Canadian history. 100 years ago, Man o' War came along during the toughest of times, a world war, a flu pandemic, and a horse racing industry that was facing difficult struggles of its own. Man o' War gave the people a reason to cheer when things looked bleak, and we are so proud to celebrate this wonderful horse today. On behalf of the Canadian Horse Racing Hall of Fame and its members, I wish each of you good health and success, and thank you once again for celebrating with us.
Thank you, Darrell, for that very inspiring message. But now it's time to refocus on the immortal Man o' War, a cultural icon, considered to be one of the best racehorses of all time. Very simply, Man o' War set world records and became a very influential sire. He was bred by August Belmont Jr. He was owned by Samuel D. Riddle, and he was trained by Louis Fustel. Man o' War competed at the major tracks in New York and Maryland. And while Samuel Riddle refused to run Man o' War in the Kentucky Derby, he did let him run in the Preakness, and he won it. And in the Belmont Stakes, he dominated by 20 lengths. Great performances indeed. But it was his final victory at Kenilworth Park in the Gold Cup that still reverberates with so many Canadians. Let's take a look at this phenomenal legend.
What some have called the greatest day in Canadian horse racing took place the afternoon of October 12, 1920 at Kenilworth Park in Windsor, Ontario, when the two biggest horse racing names of the day, Man o' War and Sir Barton, faced off for American turf supremacy. Organized by the track's operator, Mr. Abe Orpin, the Kenilworth Cup was a much-needed boost for Canadian racing following the wartime ban on betting in 1918 and 1919. Originally proposed to also feature 1918 Kentucky Derby winner Exterminator, the mile-and-a-quarter distance and the weight restrictions were not acceptable to Exterminator's owners. Instead, it was a duel between Man o' War and Sir Barton in what would become the first horse race filmed from wire to wire, with the footage later shown in movie theaters across the continent. Owned by Sam Riddle of Philadelphia, Man o' War was the leading 3-year-old of 1920, holding more records than any other horse of his time. Sir Barton, America's first Triple Crown winner in 1919 and champion of the older horse division, was owned by Montreal's commander J.K.L. Ross. The original Big Red, Man o' War was the prohibitive 1-20 favorite going into the race, in front of an estimated 30,000 spectators who wagered over $220,000 on the race. Sir Barton had the advantage at the start and led by a little more than a length in the early furlongs. By the half-mile marker, Man o' War had overtaken his rival by 2 lengths. At 3/4, the lead had been cut to a length and a half when Man o' War's jockey Clarence Cummer responded by letting his mount out to open his lead to 4 lengths as they entered the stretch.
It's Man o' War leading Sir Barton by 15 lengths.
With Sir Barton being urged to his limit, Man o' War continued to run effortlessly to cross the wire ahead by 7 lengths, lowering the track record for 1.25 miles by 6 2/5 seconds to 2:03 flat.
And Man o' War is an easy winner.
For his efforts, Man o' War received the winner's share of a $75,000 US purse and a Tiffany & Co. designed gold cup valued at $5,000. That same trophy, known as the Man o' War Cup, was later donated to Saratoga by Mrs. Riddle and is now presented annually to the winner of the Travers Stakes. Man o' War's lone race on Canadian soil was also his final career start and win, something that was repeated by Old Bones, Exterminator, and a later Big Red, Secretariat, who also concluded their careers with wins at Canadian tracks.
Well, that indeed was a moving tribute to Man o' War, and we want to thank the Woodbine Broadcast Department for their excellent presentation. Now, some may be asking, why is Man o' War joining the Canadian Horse Racing Hall of Fame now? Why on this date? Well, in addition to coinciding perfectly with today's historic anniversary of Man o' War's significant victory on Canadian soil, many will recall that the Hall's directors in recent years have expanded eligibility to the Hall to now permit those who have had a significant impact on Canadian racing to join, such as Secretariat, Dahlia, and the venerable Dan Patch, and they now grace these beautiful walls of our dual hall. I think we can all agree that Man o' War has earned his rightful place here. The Canadian Horse Racing Hall of Fame is proud to welcome, in the Legends category, Man o' War. Our congratulations to Man o' War, and you see his magnificent board that will grace these walls. It tells the story of his match race with Sir Barton, one of the most significant days in Canadian racing history. The Canadian Horse Racing Hall of Fame is now more complete. In closing, let me echo Darrell Kaplan's suggestions for supporting the Hall's fundraising initiatives. And to donate, you can go to the Canadian Horse Racing Hall of Fame's website. Our thanks to our longtime donors and supporters. Our thanks to you for joining us today for this very special event. And a special thanks to our sponsors.